Hard meeting to talk to. I have a lot of notes and I'll quickly discard them. I mean, because I could certainly reinforce many of the points that have been made and can make nuances to them from a perspective of Newcastle. And sorry, I will introduce myself further. I'm Matthew Tome, Head Teacher of Fine Arts at the Newcastle Art School, which is both located at the Hunter Street campus, but we also run courses at Singleton and on the Central Coast at Arimba. I did, however, work for 10 years at Meadowbank, so my Meadowbank colleagues, and I was for a period as well at Seaforth. And it was an interesting period, and we'll use that as an example of, because the National Arts School campaign has been brought up, and I think that is certainly a relevant thing. But I don't think you should forget the Seaforth campaign. And this was 1999, would that be right? Am I in the zone there? And I was acting head teacher at Seaforth for the year. And in August, we were called into the offices, everyone from the Seaforth campus, and told that the campus was closing. It would close at the end of the year. And the art school would be no more. Some people would be located, you all go hither and thither, some courses might remain at Brookvale, and so forth. And that, as far as they were concerned, is that. And I would say the Northern Institute has been trying to close an art school, at least one, for at least a decade. And it demonstrates how incompetent they are. They haven't managed to. I mean, it is an indictment of their uselessness. And if there is a main manager there who's tried to execute that all along, and he's been so useless at it that he's had to appeal to the higher authority and say, Daddy Barry, can you help us? This is how sad it is. So we were stuck at that meeting in August, and we went, well, what about this? And by November, they were begging us for a solution. Because I know we had a staff meeting, we said, oh, look, here's options, blah, blah, blah. We could, Brookvale, blah, blah, blah. So there we are. At least out of that, we still lost a greater proportion of the art school at that time, but we ended up with the Brookvale offering, And the reason they were begging us was because the community was driving them crazy. The people, just from Manly, for God's sake, were driving the government crazy. There was letter writing campaigns, there was protests, there was ministers. They had an upper house inquiry into it, for God's sake, within that time. I mean, it was an extraordinary effort, and it was all because of how unhappy the populace was about what that is. And the politicians heard that, and they couldn't walk backwards fast enough. So, in a perhaps slightly tighter time frame and a slightly wider compass, that is still possible. So as a head teacher, I mean, you're verging on the edge of psychosis most of the time anyway. I mean, I think you understand that. You do tend to go to work going like, I have to fight for this, I have to fight this. The message that goes out has to be negative. Look what they're doing, they're killing us, they're cutting us down, look at the things they're destroying. But we're still all right, but we're going to be okay. And we're going to go forward and we're going to keep building an art school and it's going to be okay. But it's going to be completely fucked as well, so it's very hard, But it's what you do, right? I feel exactly that way. I know you're going like, yeah, I know that's what it's like, right? And I guess some of the things that are coming through about this is that John Morris, with whom I work, the other head teacher, he says he's never been called Shirley so often in his life, Because people just come out like, oh, but surely. But surely they're not, oh, but surely you'll have a job. And he's going, no. Even the design teachers, we go, but surely they're going to keep paying you when you'll have a job and stuff. And they go like, the message in some levels just isn't quite getting through as to how urgent this is and how serious this is. And I've sat in meetings with the managers, and I will say management at the Hunter Institute in general have been pretty damn good about this. I feel like they are as upset and disappointed by this decision as much as possible, and are doing a lot to try and help us to say, okay, that's the new world. Here's how you're going to, how we're going to keep the art school going and how we're going to fund it. And so I've had more contact with the manager of marketing than I have in quite some time, and it was also extraordinarily evident to me how efficient the job of cutting us down is. Like, it is extraordinarily efficient. And I think much because it is a fairly carefully defined sort of legalistic process, that it has consultation with the unions and blah, 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 and there's a method to doing it, blah, 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 and it has a timeline and it rolls out. And I'm watching how efficient that is and thinking, gosh, when we want to try and get courses up, or we want to try and organise something, like it's rusty and creaky and clunky, and this other machine starts rolling out like a well-oiled, it's frightening. And that's frightening. And I don't think it's actually in any of the individuals, certainly that I'm dealing with, but they're just going, well, that's what you've got to do. But they are sitting there at the meetings looking at me and saying, well, the money runs out on December 31st. So we have to make decisions. And so we're sitting there going, yes, okay, that's fine. Well, we're going, right, well, if we charge this much for course and we'd organise this and we'll have a da-da-da, we plan it out and we go like, all right, if I go like this and I have little sparkles in my eyes and I go, really, I really think we can have these many courses running. I think we'll be able to get the funding for it and da-da-da. They go like, okay, calculate. Well, that's half the art school that you've got now. Half the art school. Well, I'm doing that, right? And the method is by which you go, okay, so there's that many full-time staff, that many head teachers, etc. Okay, cut it in half. Simple. Keep the proportions there, So there's a lot of, I think sometimes with part-time teachers, they're going like, oh, I won't get any work, and but you guys, I'll look after you. Go, I'm sorry, like the first people they're trying to get at the moment is the full-time staff and say bye-byes, So I don't think there's huge illusions about that. And I've heard talk of, and I wouldn't assume that many schools are sort of saying like, oh, we'll have some stuff going, so we'll have a head teacher and nothing else, And sort of in a kind of mad sort of chook run fantasy, that's like the perfect TAFE, A whole bevy of managers, and each section is just the head teacher who sort of calls people up and gives them little bits of casualised work. So this sort of theme that was being played through there about casualisation, damned efficient. I suppose the perspective too for us from the community thing in Newcastle is we have had, we feel like the centre of the city in some ways, because we're in it. And there's 120 years of history there, the building is like Sydney Tech and we're in the old trades hall and all the rest of it. Still people go like, where are you? Like they don't see it and drive past it and whatever, but there we are. But you really get a good sense there because I suppose, it's just us, the place that the art school has in the city and the life of the city. So you go, those public artworks all around there, oh, well, that was John Turier, and those ones were done by the advanced diploma students as part of a project, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that mural there, yeah, we did that one. And you kind of go, oh, okay. And then Renew Newcastle is on there, right? So they got the centre of Newcastle, the CBD, GPT. They went, GFC, GPT, all that. They kind of went, oh, empty the shops. David Jones is gone. Everything's empty there. Property developers can't do anything with the place. There's just a whole bunch of capitalists sitting on land waiting for somebody to do something, right? So Renew Newcastle, a great thing is getting artists into the shops and craftspeople and, blah, blah, blah. And there's life there. Designers, creative types, rebuilding the centre of the city. Yeah, useless lot, aren't we? I guess that's obvious. So, and I think that the theme of the skills and the opportunities that our training brings is a really strong message. And I keep thinking about anyone who comes out of our courses and gets jobs in places. They always come back to say, look, I'm using my art training all the time. I work with people with disabilities. I'm calling on it all the time because of the sort of things I'm doing or whatever. And they go, you come out of an art school with, okay, fine motor skills, You've got to be able to use tools. You've got to make things, refine things, the observational skills, the analytical skills, etc. You can play the people, digital cameras, digital photography, the whole. There's a huge sweep of skills that are very transferable and very useful in a working life. And I even think about the notion of a journal. We all have, students have their journals, and the journal is a collecting of information and writing and reflecting upon your progress. I mean, that sounds like one of the 7 habits of a highly effective person, isn't it? I mean, you should teach that at bloody Harvard Business School, because that's really where you start going, this is how you record your thoughts and be aware of your thinking and reflect upon your working life, So, I mean, all these sort of things that we just take as normal part of our business in the art school are incredibly useful and incredibly work useful skills, if you like. The thing that cuts to me most, and I'll talk a little bit about how. Oh, okay. Well, maybe I won't. A little bit about the sort of courses we're planning or whatever. But what cuts to the heart of all this is that people who come into courses like the Certificate 3. So we run the Certificate 3, and it's that stepping up, And you can see that kids have come to these courses, and adults as well, but particularly come to this and they're going, I can't work in a school anymore. I can't do Year 11 and Year 12 and do the HSC because the school narrows down. The number of kids that go, they won't let me choose art at school. I have to do this. I can't do. Or they have to, they have to be good at writing bloody essays. Let's face it. And these people learn through making things, doing things, seeing things. And the retreat that often these kids have is to the bedroom and to the dope. Like I've had a father come to me in the last month and said, "You saved our son," because before he came to the art school, he was in there smoking dope and killing himself, and he wouldn't leave the room. But he drew, but he did drawings. And we kind of went, that got him into art school. And he said within 2 weeks he was a changed boy, and now he's going in postgraduate. And I've got dozens of people like that. People who've gone, school doesn't work for me, I don't fit in, But they get to art school and they go, oh, there is a place for me. And they find that they've got skills, and they find that they can read and they can research and they can present to groups. They do PowerPoints, for God's sake. They really actually become really effective working, living people in the world and grow, but they couldn't have got there without art school. So I would say Barry O'Farrell's biggest problem is that if he shuts the art schools down, we're on the streets. Then what is he going to do?